Naga Siren is currently one of the strongest carry heroes in the game, and this quick guide is going to help you get started with her. Here's a skill build you follow in most games. Mirror Image needs to be maxed out first, so we have full uptime. Riptide doesn't scale quite as well, but it's our other farming ability, so we also want to max it. Ensnare doesn't help us farm, but can help us get kills or be aggressive in lane. If you have a really bad lane and you anticipate that you have to leave the lane fast, you can skip Ensnare entirely and just get it at the end. Our song doesn't help us farm either, so typically we delay it until 11 and 12. Talents are rather situational, but typically you want to go for Riptide damage, Mirror Image damage, extra illusion, and lower Illu cooldown. Our item is also fairly rigid. Typically we just go for Tango, Wraithbane components, and Blade, and we have 100 gold left, which you put into 2 branches. If we need a stick early of the very spammy lane, we go for this instead. But anyway, we go for a Wraithband and Treads. Those are most important early game items. And then it's a bit optional. Some games you want to go for the Wand. But if you don't need it in lane, you can skip it entirely. Basilius is great if it needs extra mana. And then Windlace really helps us both fight and farm, because Naga really depends on movement speed a lot. But you typically don't want to go all 3 of these optional items, so you typically want to go 1 or 2 of them, otherwise you run out of slots too early. Our main item obviously is Manta Style, just a perfect Illu item. We followed up with Orchid, which gives us a lot of extra kill potential, and also gives attack speed, which is great for illusions, and it solves all our mana problems. So we can spam both our main illusions and our Manta Style to our heart's content. You might be curious why there's no Diffu Blade in this build. The reason is just that Diffu is no longer that strong in illusion heroes. It's only 8 mana burn per attack. So this is great if you're Phantom Lancer and you create a jillion illusions, but Naga doesn't have that many illusions. So Diffu just doesn't actually add all that much damage. So in most games, Orchid is just going to be the superior alternative, and also just has a better upgrade path. Heart is a natural follow-up because we want our illusions to be tanky, and this just gives us the most amount of tankiness. And after that, we typically buy a Butterfly, which is a really strong item on illusions. The agility and attack speed is great, and evasion also applies to illusions. Of course, Bloodthorn is an obvious upgrade from Orchid. Apart from that, Eye of Skadi can be great for the extra stats, extra tankiness. Moonshot is a really strong item on illusion heroes, actually, as long as you just have it. If you consume it, it doesn't apply to illusions. But if you just have the Moonshot, 140 attack speed makes this actually the best pure DPS item. You might want to get extra disable with a Hex or with the Nullify to nullify defensive items. Abyssal might also be an option. Blink, upgrade Blink is great in late game, obviously. The Agnum Scepter is great as like a 7th item to get the Agnum's Blessing. BKB in some games might be necessary. Usually we don't want to buy this item. Same for MKB, but if there's a lot of evasion, we might be forced to buy this. It's important to get comfortable with control groups as Naga. You can set your control groups down here. So you set control plus whatever you have set up here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are going to persist throughout. So if I use my mirror image, I'm going to have on 1, I'm going to have my main Naga and 1 illusion, and then on 2 it's going to be 2 more illusions. And setting up illusions in pairs is great because this is a great number for just clearing out jungle camps. These stacked camps with these kind of items are no problem. And then you just want to shift click your illusions to the next camp and thereby increase your farming efficiency. And the further on you go into the game, the more you want to split up your illusions. But for much of the game, having these groups of 2 is great. And 2 is also great for pushing out waves really fast. You want to get comfortable with shift clicking there. You want to like shift click, for example, here, and then we attack, shift click there. And we attack, move here. So we'll just move along this wave while we can focus on other things. Here's a little bonus tip for tread switching. So you want to use your in-treads when you're casting mirror image, but int illusions, of course, are weaker than agi illusions or strength illusions. So what you do is you press mirror image and then immediately press your treads. You do it right, then you pay int prices, but you actually get agi illusions. Same thing actually can be done with Manta Style. Like this. Of course, later on in the game, when you've got like your Orchid, your Bloodthorn and so on, this is no longer that important. But for the early game, it's going to make quite a difference. Really, the main thing about Naga is just farming a lot, hitting your early item timings, and then doing stuff with your team. Naga is really good at fighting on open terrain. She's not that great at going high ground. So oftentimes it's great to pair Naga with other cores that are good at going high ground, that are good at taking buildings. Something like a lone druid, for example. If you don't have that kind of hero, you might want to have another core that's actually good at scaling. Because if the other two cores are only like space creators that can't really go high ground, oftentimes Naga Siren tends to stall out games and then not really being able to finish it, which can be problematic because in the very, very late game, other heroes can outscale her. Naga is not a very complicated hero in principle, but actually executing properly is quite hard, so go out there and practice, and this guide hopefully is a good foundation.